For 16 whole years I have been part of a family which has been stable for the vast majority of the time. For 11 of those years, however, I have been living as a middle child, with an older brother, Ben, and a younger sister, Lydia, and it seems that during this time I have been a stereotypical middle child, someone who complains of being squeezed out and marginalised, a rebel who doesn't quite fit into the mould of the family. The cultural practice of feeling left out and rebellious has been followed by me, and I have often complained about my treatment as a middle child, conforming to the way that culture states a middle child should act, and also conforming to the cultural view of middle siblings. But is my argument about being marginalised and treated unfairly valid, or is it all in my head, and has culture told me to think this way? It is important to firstly see if being a middle child really does mean that you are treated differently. Alfred Adler, a significant psychologist of the 19th and 20th centuries, believes that a middle child in a normal and even stable family can be marginalised and can feel squeezed out. Adler conducted significant research into how birth order affects both personality and how a child is likely to be treated within the family. And by taking a look into the research about the middle child, it is clear that there is strong correlation between the theorised middle child and myself. Adler stated that the middle child is not likely to be the family's main source of attention, and is probably going to be the most forgotten child out of all the children. The middle child will also feel squeezed out and will struggle to find a place within a family. Therefore, if Adler is correct, then I am a marginalised child, and I am not complaining unnecessarily. I often feel that I am the forgotten child, looked over in decisions, and an example that may fortify this statement is when we moved house. When room allocation was decided, there was a large, spacious room, a middle-sized but uniquely cosy and well-placed room, and a small cardboard box, or as it seemed. My older brother took the large room, which was understandable seeing as he was the oldest and therefore had the most items. But then my younger sister was allocated the middle room, leaving me with barely enough space to fit my bed into, never mind my possessions. My parents' justification for depriving me of the privilege of the other room? Because Lydia, my sister, was a girl who will probably have more things than you as she gets older. Appealing to no avail, this seemed to me like a distinct snub from my parents, who didn't seem concerned at all about my welfare. So am I really treated differently within my family? Gahagan stated that a group of people is significantly more than the sum of its parts, which means that the family members alone do not ensure that there is a stable family, but it is instead the integration of these family members into a group that makes it mature and stable. This raises the question as to whether I have been integrated into my family, and to whether it is more difficult for middle children to fit in. If Gahagan is right, then perhaps as a middle child I have found it harder to fit into my group because of the natural setup of a family and the difficulties that being a middle child brings, for example, teasing from other siblings. I feel that I am the butt of all jokes in my family, and I am often teased by my brother because he has the birthright. Have I been allowed, or have I allowed myself, to integrate myself into my family, and has this consequently led to my marginalisation? However, this is all my own opinion, and perhaps I am exaggerating in order to argue my case successfully. Therefore, the following interview has been conducted with my father Neil, to see whether he believes whether I have been treated differently, and to see if I really am marginalised. Okay, so Dad, do you think that as a middle child I've been treated differently to my siblings?
I think in some ways we treat all the children differently. So I would say in some ways, yes, you have.
In what ways would you say?
Well, you've had hand-me-downs, you've not been the first to do things, but you've also done certain things earlier in your life than the other children.
Okay, thanks. In your opinion, have I been marginalised within the family because I'm a middle child?
I honestly don't think you've been marginalised, no.
Okay, but obviously I think that sometimes I might be marginalised. So why do you think that I might think sometimes I'm marginalised?
I think sometimes you compare yourself with others and what they've done or what they might do, and maybe you're a little bit too sensitive. This interview gives a different stance on whether I have been marginalised, and so therefore it appears that I might after all have a bee in my bonnet for no apparent reason. So is it a cultural influence upon me which is causing me to feel marginalised within my family? Culture certainly has a great impact on the individual and how they act.
Because communication and culture is a major part of people's lives, it could be that I am not marginalised in my family, but instead I believe to be marginalised because culture tells me that I should act in this way.
This ties in very closely with the self-fulfilling prophecy, the idea that expectations cue behaviour. Because culture and society tell me that middle children are marginalised and act as though they are squeezed out, then this becomes a reality in my own life, and I act as a middle child according to the cultural view of children like myself. Clifford Geertz described man as an animal suspended in webs of significance that he himself has spun, the webs representing culture. If you take me to be the man, then I am suspended in my own culture that I have created for myself, so I cannot break free of the idea that I am marginalised, because I cannot break free from culture. Of course, whether being a middle sibling means that I have been marginalised is down to opinion. What has not been looked at in great detail is the positives of being a middle child. The Daily Mail has written numerous articles on how a middle child tends to be more intelligent and determined to succeed, and the fact that many middle children are successful within society. For example, JFK and Bill Gates. The argument that I am marginalised in my family because I am a middle child is fortified by Alfred Adler and Gahagan. But on the flip side, my case could just be mind over matter, with culture having a significant hold over me and cueing my behaviour and thoughts.
But what is known for sure is that I am part of a stable family that looks after me well and tries to treat me fairly and equally, so I cannot complain about that.